Welcome to the Creative Minds Smart Money Podcast, where we turn financial confusion into creative confidence. I'm Samantha Eck, bookkeeper and fractional CFO for creative entrepreneurs. Each week, I'm sharing my financial expertise and actionable strategies to help you build a thriving creative business. Plus, you'll hear from industry experts who bring fresh perspectives on growing your business beyond the numbers. Because building a successful creative business starts with strong financial foundations. Your next chapter starts now. Hello. And it really does. It feels like it's been so long since I've sat down to record. And realistically, it's just because I've been so crazy busy that I just haven't had time to sit down and actually record. So I'm very excited. And today, we're going to talk about the pricing audit that every creative avoids at mid-year. And you might be like, oh, Samantha, I don't know if I really need to audit my prices. Auditing doesn't seem like something that I naturally need to do. But the truth of the matter is that you should be auditing your prices every year, even if you feel like it's not necessary, because there's so many different things that shift. The cost of your software subscriptions are going to shift. The cost of sometimes your contract information is going to shift. Just in general, costs are going to shift. So that changes a lot of different things for you. So the question we want to ask ourselves is, when was the last time that we actually looked at our prices and if they were actually working? So mid-year is definitely going to feel like it's the worst possible to have the time to have this conversation, when realistically it is one of the best times to have it, because it's that time that you can pivot and potentially, reach the targets that you've been setting for yourself all year in the middle of the year before it gets to year end, and now you're like, oh no, I don't have the time to change what I want to change anymore, right? So a lot of times mid-year pricing audits don't happen, but we want to ask ourselves why. Why do they not happen? And the questions that I want you to think about is, the emotional resistance to running the audit, of course, is because you're like, I don't want to lose customers. I don't know if I really need to change my pricing. There's a lot of work that goes into looking at my pricing, so I don't really want to do that. And that's really that emotional resistance, is because it feels heavy. It feels like it's a lot. It feels like it can cause you a lot of issues. It feels like it can cause you a lot of pain, heartache, whatever it is. It definitely feels like it's something that you can end up running into a wall with. And it just makes it so much easier to skip it and to just avoid it in general, because you're like, oh, well, if I just don't do it, then I don't have to worry about that stress. I don't have to worry about all that work that I'm going to have to put into all of it, right? So, of course, when we're looking at a pricing audit and everything like that, the data is hard to look at alone. And I will just be honest with that. The data is really hard to look at with pricing alone, because what you're going to suspect and what you're going to feel underneath is that the answer that you know is coming is going to feel uncomfortable, because you're going to know that you need to adjust your pricing. You're going to, maybe already deep down inside, and the true answer is going to make you feel uncomfortable because you have to step outside of, a boundary that you've set up for yourself. You have to step outside of that comfort zone and really end up talking to people about changing your pricing. The conversation needs honesty that most creatives just can't give themselves about their own pricing. And that's the truth of the matter, is that when you are looking at your own pricing and you're like, oh, I don't know if I really need to flex on that because of this. When someone is looking at it and they're sitting down, they're saying, this is how much time you're putting into this. This is how much software costs you're having. And they're being that realistic person, and they're saying, hey, here's what your profitability looks like. There's a change that happens really deeply that you end up looking at, and you're like, oh, okay, I really do actually need to change this. Pricing does feel personal, and charging certain prices feels confrontational. It's a natural instinct. It's a natural emotion. This is not something that is foreign. It is not something that is outside of the bounds. I even feel this way with my pricing. It feels very confrontational when you have such a large price. Even when the numbers say that you need to be charging this, you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can charge that. And the reason being is because we look at what other people are charging and we compare ourselves to them, when our situation is entirely different from theirs. They could be using different softwares, they could be using different systems, they could be using different people that are helping them in their business. You cannot compare your situation to other people's. And of course, the longer it goes unexamined that you're not looking at these pricing things, the more lost revenue that's going to be sitting in that gap because you're not analyzing your pricing and you're not seeing if things have changed and if you need to shift those things to make your profitability be better. And not just your profitability, but to allow yourself to pay yourself more, to allow yourself to pay your employees more comfortable, to allow yourself to feel less stress over money. Now, when I actually run a pricing audit, there's a lot of things that happen and a lot of things that we see transform over time. And one of the patterns that we see almost every time is that people are not charging enough for the time that they're putting into it. You start off, you get a base rate, you're like, okay, you know what? I need to charge myself $60 an hour. You're now 3 years in, you've never run a pricing audit. And you're looking at the time that you're spending, you're looking at the time that your contractors, your employees are spending on this work. And it's almost triple what it was when you first started because you've developed these skills, you've developed these processes, you've developed these ways of doing things that are really extraordinary. And you're like, yes, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait for this to happen. But you never charge the right amount for it. And that is the thing that I always see is that they're not charging enough for their time. And again, even though we don't charge per hour, that needs to be built into your packages. You need to be charging enough money for your time that it's worth it for you to do these projects. And it surprises even the most thoughtful business owners because a lot of times they're like, oh, I thought I was covering this or I thought I was covering that. But when we actually sit down and we look at everything and we look at what's going into this, they miss it. It's the missing piece. And I'm not saying this, it's because they're scared to look at it, right? You're scared to understand the time that's going into it. And then you're also scared to raise your prices because, again, you don't want to deflect clients. You don't want clients to be going elsewhere. You're like, I want clients to be coming to me. But the right people are always going to find you regardless of your pricing. Again, they have at least one offer that's mispriced by at least 15 to 30% almost every single time. That is one of the biggest patterns that I see. It's almost every single time there's one offer that is just completely mispriced that we need to shift the pricing for that automatically will bring in more revenue for them. And sometimes the mispricing is high and the close rate does prove it. Like sometimes it's overpriced and your closing rate does prove it because maybe you're spending less time on something and we're saying, oh, maybe we can bring this down a little bit. You could be making more money more often and you could afford to have this be a lower price and still deliver properly. Sometimes it's really low. And of course, then your burn rate is going to prove it, like how many people you have coming in your door and going out your door. Obviously, a lot of the time we look at this, the offer that the owner felt the most confident about is often the one that is the most off because that's either the one that we have priced either too low or too high. The audit also surfaces 1 to 2 offers that should have been retired, 6 months ago. Sometimes we're looking at these offers and we're saying we shouldn't even be putting the effort into these because they're not really bringing us clients or they're not bringing us what we want to see in our business. Like they're just not profitable and we need to think about maybe, sunsetting these offers eventually. Of course, this analysis takes more than just punching in numbers or a calculator. There's a lot of deeper things that we need to be looking at. You can't just look at one number and decide, right? Like you can't just separate that offer and be like, oh, I made $10,000 in that offer. It's not good enough to just look at what you made. You need to be looking at the full picture. There's a lot of inputs that need to be looked at when you're analyzing this pricing. So you need to look at the close rate of your current price. How often inquiries come from these bookings and how often do you close these bookings for these specific offers? You need to look at your effective hourly rate, which is your revenue divided by the hours you actually work, which includes admin and sales, which is again why I was saying, a while ago that you need to be tracking your hours and actually looking at your hours. And that's how we analyze and track profitability. You need to be looking at your refund and redo rate. So if you are a graphic designer, how often are you having to redo work? What percentage of work has to be done twice or what needs to be refunded? Like how often are we seeing that? And then you need to be looking at your category level revenue, how the offer mix is actually trending versus what you planned. So again, looking at all your offers and saying, Okay, how is this going up and down per month? Looking at the trends, looking at everything. And that's where I'm saying, like, when you are looking at your profitability and you're like, hey, I'm just going to raise my prices, and you just raise your prices by maybe $200-$300 without actually looking at the facts, you're not really doing it properly, because you're just looking at one number and being like, oh, I just need to raise my prices. You really, if you want to get accurate and you want to make sure that you're making the right amount, you're being profitable on every offer, you really need to dig into it, okay? Now, what do we do with the information that we find from these audits, and how do we actually understand, the process here? After we figure this out and we look at everything, do we actually do anything with these numbers? We want to look at that. And how do we change, pricing in the middle of a year without losing a client? Because now we're doing this audit in July and we're saying, okay, let's look at this, but how do we do that? So, first of all, we need to make sure that we have the staged pricing change, right? New clients will come in at this new rate automatically. You want to transition existing clients on a timeline. Maybe you're a graphic designer and the past clients don't work with you anymore. So that doesn't matter, but your new clients need to be on this rate. If you have a retainer clients, that's where you need to slowly kind of do like a transition and looking at their pricing and just saying, hey, here's what's changed over the past year. Here's the amount of work that I've been doing for you. Here's what we've added to our packages. This is going to be your new price. I'm going to give you 3 months to decide if you would like to continue on this price package or if you need to be looking for someone else. And you do it in a kind way, right? You don't do it in a negative way. And if they're passionate and they see the work that you're doing and they're like, yes, I know that this is worth it, they're going to change, like they're going to figure out a way to work with you. If they are not the right client for you and they don't see the value in what you're doing, they're going to leave. It's just natural. They just don't see the value. And that's okay. That's not something that you need to be worried about. If they cannot see your value, then they're not the right clients for you. Now, the conversation with existing clients needs to almost be scripted and unsentimental. Don't attach any emotion to it. Even if you think they're great clients, even if you think they're loyal, even if you think they're your best friend, it needs to be unemotional, unsentimental, straightforward, and just the same thing to every client. Tell them why you are raising your prices. Tell them what you are giving them in addition to the price raise, and show them the facts. Don't make it emotional. Don't make it any sort of other things. Give them the facts. And then, of course, we want to look at which offers are going to get the change, which offers are going to get retired, and which are going to get kind of held. Like which ones are like, okay, we're at the perfect pricing. We're not going to change that. Once everything is kind of baked in and we have everything good, that's when you're going to go back to those forecasts that we keep talking about, your cash flow forecasts, and make those revisions once the new pricing is baked in. And look at what the future is going to hold for you once you have those pricing audits in there, once everything is good. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is the cost of waiting for until December, until the end of the year. Why does it matter that we do it now instead of waiting till later? And what does waiting till later cost us? Well, pricing decisions made now can hit cash flow by September. So if you're going to make a pricing decision now, you're going to change your pricing, you looked at that audit, you got your profitability done, that's going to show up sooner rather than later, right? Pricing decisions made in November aren't going to hit cash flow until your next calendar year. So if you're like, I want to hit this profitability goal by the end of the year, and you make that decision in December, you're never going to make that this year, right? It's going to be next year. Every booked month at the wrong price, so at the price that you are currently having or the price that you set earlier, is revenue that you're not going to be able to get back, right? You're not going to be able to get that revenue back in your pocket. And of course, the second half of the year calendar is mostly set by October. So the audit does need to happen before then because you want to make sure that you're making those reasonable changes. Okay, so when we're thinking of audits and we're thinking of pricing audits, we're not trying to be emotional about it. We're not trying to say, oh my goodness, these clients, they're my best clients. I understand. Trust me. I get it that we have amazing clients, the people that we work with, we love them. But sometimes it's about what's best for you and your business, and not always, thinking of just the client. If you want your client to get the best service possible and you want to continue to provide the best service for your clients so that they continue to recommend you, they continue to work with you, you also need to consider what you need out of your business in order to provide that service for them, okay? The pricing audit with the close rate, effective hourly rate, and forecast inputs all running together is part of how my CFO services work. And if you've been avoiding that pricing conversation, if you've been avoiding even looking at it, because you don't have the data set up to have it honestly, then let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it and let's see if it's a right fit for us to start maybe working on a profitability report for you, to see if we need to raise your prices, to see if we need to get you to where you need to be. Okay? As always, you guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like it, share it, subscribe it with family, friends, business partners, whoever it is, so that we can get more people listening to this podcast and we can have more conversations like this. As always, you guys, I wish you the best week ever, and we'll see you next week. Farewell, fellow travelers.